Good morning and welcome to the virtual version of the National Self-Build and Renovation Show. My name is James Bryden and I work for a company called CLPM Limited, and today I'm going to talk you through a little bit about project management and how to successfully manage your project. CLPM Limited provide cost control, project management and contract administration services to individuals either extending, renovating or building new properties. So sort of crash through this quite quickly, only about 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to try and be fairly swift if that's okay. So first slide up is a little bit about the first question I generally get is, why do I need a project manager at all? Every project needs a project manager. So be in whatever industry you're in, be you computing or construction, it doesn't really matter. Somebody has to sit in the middle of the project and coordinate the time, cost and quality of any project. So these are the three sort of key milestones, which we'll have a little look at in a bit more detail later on as to sort of the key aspects of each one. But firstly, we'll try and have a look at a couple of sample projects and who and the parties that might be involved in them. So if we start with what's a relatively modest project, if you like, so single-story rear extension. Hopefully you see my cursor bouncing around a bit. There's sort of the folding sliding doors at the rear here, and opening up the kitchen, so there's a nice big kitchen, dining, living area there out the back of the house, and possibly a little bit of knocking the walls around of the original house. So not a huge project, but certainly something to get your teeth into. So the sort of parties that may be involved here would be, so you have an architect who sort of does all the design for you and gets it through your planning, and then there's potentially a party wall surveyor, because you're excavating near your neighbour's structure. Building control, they'll need to be involved to make sure they can sign it off at the end. Probably going to have a main builder who's doing the vast majority of the construction works. Utility companies, you may have to move a gas meter or something like that, or electricity meter, so you may need to get them involved. You've chosen some nice folding sliding windows from a nice trade show or down at the NSBRC. So, and there's a kitchen supplier who you want to use specifically. Then at the end of the project, looking to bring in a landscaper to come and tidy up the garden and lay the patio and smarten all the garden up. So there's immediately 8 parties that need coordinating. And so somebody has to sit in the middle of that. Okay, so there can be less, there can be more. So obviously this is just a sample. So you may think, okay, no, that's okay. I think as the client, I think I can manage that, so I will wear the project management hat. But whatever happens, somebody has to sit in the middle there and wear the project manager's hat. Okay, so if we now go to a slightly more complicated one, this was one we actually completed beginning of last year. Really bespoke design, lots of very sort of niche details and very bespoke items throughout the building. And we ended up with, I think, over 75 suppliers on this project because we ended up sitting right in the middle of this. So obviously you can simplify this and try and get a main builder to do a lot more of it, but this was the other extreme, if you like. So some of these names here, not really that critical. It was just the fact that we had sort of over 75 moving parties that needed some sort of input or were invoicing the project for some reason. So whoever's going to act as that project manager, and if the answer is that you would like to do it yourself, then certainly please ask yourself a couple of questions and answer them honestly as you can. The biggest one for me always is, how much time do I have? So if you're having to earn the money for the project by going to work every day from 9 to 5, and then you're trying to sort of run the project at the same time, I don't think that's a practical solution. So I think there has to be another way of doing it. So you have to look at other solutions. Other items to consider, though, certainly are how much construction experience do you have? Maybe not absolutely critical because it's about managing a process more, but certainly it would be useful to have some construction experience you can at least call on. So what are your skills as well? What are the bits you like doing as well? So there may be parts of the project management role we'll come on to later that you think, yeah, actually, yeah, they're the bits I want to do, and I'll get some help in for the others. So there is a bit of flexibility, and try and do the things you enjoy. I mean, potentially it's a very exciting process. If you're going to do more of the project management yourself, please make sure there's a bit of contingency there. So there's a bit of money and possibly time as well. Certainly, if you're going to do more of the management yourself, it does tend to prolong things a little bit. But so make sure there's a bit of contingency there first. So typically the routes of project management. So if we just go through the sort of the most common scenarios, it does depend on how you buy your project. So, but say the most common ones are the main contractor or the main builder does the vast majority of the project management. The architect is retained to help steer you through the process and oversee some of the project as well. You completely outsource the project in its entirety, including the design. So there's a design and build or turnkey contractor. You manage it yourself, which is presumably one of the reasons you're listening to this, is to see whether it's viable for you to try and do your own project. Or you employ an independent project manager. I'm certainly going to be biased on that one because that's the service we provide. So we'll try and go through each one of these now in a little bit more detail. Big advantage of a main contractor is they take all the commercial risks. So if something goes wrong on the site, generally it's their problem. So you don't end up being exposed to it in either time or cost. So it's a very popular way because nobody wants to buy that risk. Some of the disadvantages, though, are that you're then reliant on all the builders' advice and guidance and suppliers because they will restrict that option. But obviously with their suppliers there, as one of the pros there is that they should have a pretty reliable team of contractors that they've used for years before. So there should be a fairly good relationship on site and good streamlined system of work that the main contractor could set up. But one of the key things is you're obviously reliant on them, or one of the key negatives rather is you're reliant on the contractor's advice. So there may be other ways of doing things, certainly not they're doing anything wrong, but they may be the route that they choose to take as opposed to the one you think, well, actually, if we'd have gone that way, it's a little bit more complicated and possibly even a little bit more expensive, but I would have liked to have considered it, please. Probably the most common one is that you retain the architect through the design and then they come and steer you through the construction phase as well. So they can act as a bit of a site inspector to sort of police the contractor as well and inspect their works. Obviously, they're going to know the design very well as they've designed it themselves. So it's well recognized, but please be aware that you need to have that discussion with your designer fairly early on to make sure they do actually provide that service for you. Also be aware that good architects don't necessarily make good project managers, but you'll probably will have got to grips with that during the design phase. So if they're very sort of slow at delivering everything, late to meetings, don't return calls and everything like that, you start to think, really? Not quite a great sign for managing a project. But the other one, they should be very protective about their design, which I would certainly respect an architect who says, no, you can't change my design because otherwise it has this sort of impact. And they should be proud and protective of their design. But once in a while, you do need to override that. And so sometimes you will not get quite get the simplest response. Design and build turnkey. This is where very little input at all from the client, where you talk to one person throughout the entire process of the build, basically, which can be a real advantage. You will not have much choice in the way of suppliers. This is very common with the German or Scandinavian sort of prefab houses, which are some fabulous designs there. Certainly, they come at a bit of a premium price, but they are great products in many ways. You are very much beholden to everything they say and do. So there is certainly a lack of flexibility, I would suggest. They do work very hard to try and accommodate your requests, but their designs are fairly fixed. You will end up with sort of less input into the project because to a certain extent, that's the service you're paying for. And it is a case of, you just wait for a set of keys almost to turn up at the end of the project. Client managed, obviously this is the one you may be interested in, so it requires a lot of time and energy. This is the one, this is the biggest negative in there. And it does stretch relationships with the contractors as well sometimes because they don't view you as an experienced sort of manager, if you like, so that there can be issues there. So you have to be conscious of those. Obviously on site, so very quick decision making and should obviously have a very close understanding of the project. Also, please be aware if you're reliant on providing all the health and safety advice and making sure that there is a safe site, if you like, then there's various health and safety responsibilities under the principal contractor role that you must look into and make sure are managed effectively. So then we have the independent project manager. So this is the one I'm going to be biased about, and there's Alistair, one of our project managers there. A couple of big advantages: they can act as a firewall between you and the contractor, so you can ask questions and sort of as much as you want without fear of thinking you're biasing anybody's opinion. They should be able to provide flexibility in procurement, so if there's particular contractors you want to bring on board, then that should be perfectly manageable by an independent project manager. And they should have plenty of construction advice to provide you as well, just to keep you aware of what the decisions are and give you a process to work through. Not always viable on smaller projects. So that first one I mentioned there with the single story extension, not sure whether the numbers will quite stack up for that. And potentially the client does feel as though they're being sidelined. So now going back to those 3 pillars we looked at are the 3 key things. I'm going to very quickly go through these. And the common theme here will be design, design, design. So where time is critical, if you haven't got a thorough design, then nobody can provide an accurate program, so they don't know what they're building. So if you say, yes. So, and the project manager's role is to provide a realistic program and monitor it on a regular basis. Checking and upholding suppliers on their deadlines and making sure information flows effectively. And it all ties back to managing and monitoring that construction program and making sure the most important bit is checking the interfaces between the specialist suppliers and contractors are being adhered to. Next one is where cost is critical. So again, I'll come back to design, design, design. Without a design, you can't price it. Very simple example, if you don't provide a lighting design, one contractor may price you a downlight, a sort of a pendant light in each room, whereas the next contractor may price you sort of 6 or 7 downlights in each room. And so immediately you have a price that doesn't really compare because you haven't told them what to price. So it's very important here to try and get a decent design. At the outset, it's then worth getting a budget prepared so you can understand where all your costs are going, and it gives you a better chance of doing value engineering or trying to trim out costs where you don't need them. Competitive tendering as you go through, obviously also an advantage to try and help drive the prices down. Where quality is critical, obviously a very clear specification of exactly what you require really helps any contractors then know that, okay, parts of this building are really important, so I've really got to be on my mettle to make sure I've priced it correctly. Again, you should be looking at sort of several contractors for any specific items that you really want sort of a high specification on. If you're doing some stonework or marble or something like that, then certainly you need to know that you've got some top quality contractors on board and should be able to choose those particular skills. And that may not be a skill of a general builder, if you like. So it can help if there are particular areas of your project where quality is absolutely critical, then you may go and look for specialists in that market. And part of the quality control role is also to continually checking that what is on the drawings is being generated on site. So are you getting what you're paying for, basically? And we tend to visit once a week, at least, to go and do a good inspection with the drawings. So hopefully, very quickly, that sort of covers the key bits. And the one thing I would like you to take out of this is design, design, design. So please make sure that that's the biggest tool in the project manager's toolbox, and whoever wears that project manager's hat. So if you're thinking of doing it yourself, please spend a lot of time doing the preparation, but also then try and decide where the main risk items are on the project and what your most important aspect is. Is it cost? Then you may look to break the project down. Is it time? Then you may want to look at the sort of that main contractor route, because then they can take the risk for you on various things. Or is it quality, where you use a bit of a hybrid sometimes and use a general builder for quite a lot of the work, and then a few specialists come in to do the bits that are really, really bespoke and precious to you. But whoever does that project management role, please give them lots of design. That allows them to prepare and tender for comprehensive pricing, so that gives them the best chance of keeping the costs under control. It also makes sure that you can understand the interdependencies between contractors and certain products, so that they've got the best chance of getting the program right and being able to monitor it effectively. And also that means information can flow between all these contractors, so they can all see and know what to expect from some of the other skills on site. And then it's continually checking that everybody's building what's going on the drawings. So maximise your planning for a successful project, please. Okay, well, that's me about wrapped up. I know that was very rapid. I apologise that we've gone through that very quickly. But should you have any questions on that, then either please contact CLPM, or I'm sure the NSBRC will now give you an option to post questions. I'm sure we'll be able to get back to you through that portal. Okay, thank you very much. And I hope you've enjoyed that. And thank you very much for listening.